The great Duke Ellington coming back here to the Imus in the Morning program around the radio all over the world and on the Fox Business Network. 19 till the hour. Please welcome to the program one of my favorite guests, called Two Questions Jeffers. Good morning, Mr. Jeffers.
Good morning, Don. Good to
Talk
be here.
about your musical Mount Rushmore here now, numbnuts.
Oh, no.
You've got on your musical Mount Rushmore.
What?
First of all,
Wait, hold on. He's already got two questions as his nickname.
First of all, here's who should. This is for my wife, who has an idiotic list as well.
Okay.
Here's who should be on the musical Mount Rushmore: Elvis,
Okay.
Sinatra,
Okay.
the Beatles, and
Okay.
Chuck Berry, and then or you, either Chuck Berry or Little Richard. Probably Chuck Berry.
Okay. I don't have an argument with any of those
Thank you.
four names. However, the question was not asked of me who would be the names on Mount Rushmore, but who were my greatest representatives in terms of the different music genres. And I picked one of each of these gentlemen and as musical selections, because they are sort of surrogates for a group. Sinatra represents Nat King Cole and Lee Wiley and Tony Bennett and Joe Williams and all of those great singers, Jerry Southern. And then I have Duke Ellington, the greatest jazz composer in American history.
Not Miles Davis.
And not Miles Davis, no, Duke Ellington.
Right.
But he represents all of the great big band eras, Miller and Count Basie and Benny Goodman and Stan Kenton and all of them. I have Michael Franks, who in the 1980s was one of the top popular contemporary artists in the country, but he represents Boz Scaggs and Van Morrison and so many that I liked.
What?
To me, he's symbolizes
represents Van Morrison.
Well, I don't see a reason for us to part ways here over this. We all have our own musical taste.
Have you lost your mind?
I'm paying homage to everyone in that category, except I'm using Michael Franks as the example. Blue Magic, they weren't the greatest soul group ever.
No, they weren't.
But to me, because of their harmonies and songs like "Chasing Rainbows" and Tear It Down, Start All Over Again, Sideshow, they represent the best of the harmonies of the Motown sound, the Philadelphia sound, the Jacksons, and Being Polite. So each of those names, Sinatra, all of them, not only were they great themselves, I didn't say they were necessarily Mount Rushmore, although Duke Ellington is without question Mount Rushmore, but they all were great, and they symbolize all of the other artists that Connell, that you, that everyone else here would like to add in those different categories.
All right, I accept that then.
Okay, thank you.
Well, never mind.
Okay. Okay.
So the Supreme Court yesterday ruled 6-2
Yes.
on this to uphold this ban on affirmative action.
Yes.
In other words,
Yes.
in Michigan they can't consider race in terms of admitting students to public schools.
Correct.
What's your view?
Well, my view is I was expecting this to happen, but it gives me an opportunity to make a broader comment about the entire political spectrum we live in under the Obama administration. The reality is, Don, and I have said this before on your show, when he leaves office, the next president's going to be white, and the president after that may very well be white or Hispanic. But one thing, I've now changed my attitude. I used to say if Barack Obama didn't more squarely address issues of race, that historians would look back and say that his administration missed an opportunity. Now I'm beginning to believe it's so serious that they won't just be saying he missed an opportunity, they will be saying that the Obama administration failed in terms of how they needed to address issues of race, and this is one of them. No fireside chats.
Okay, let me interrupt you
Sure.
for a second.
Sure.
He is half white.
That doesn't matter. I don't care if he's half purple or from the moon. The reality is that he represented to many Americans who were also half black, as a matter of fact, and half white, and all white or all black, although there's virtually no one who's entirely one or the other, as we know, genetically. He represented the symbolism of what they expected to be. Most of us were not naive enough to think this was going to be a post-racial society, but we certainly thought that an African-American president would be able to bring a kind of focus on the conversation about race in a way that we hadn't seen before. And he hasn't done that.
Oh, you and I thought that.
Yes, and he hasn't done that. And you know what, Don, this weekend, I'll tell you a quick story. I was driving up the turnpike to visit my family for Easter. I noticed on the way in Pennsylvania and in New York State, 5 police cars that had pulled a driver over for some infraction. every one of those drivers was African American. Every one of them. Now, I am telling you, Don, that there is no way that is just coincidence. The reality is racial profiling is a factor. And I don't blame whites for not being concerned about that. Most people, when they drive on the highway and somebody's pulled over, they're thinking, well, I'm glad they didn't it wasn't me. But I look at things in a different prism, and I saw, wait a minute, the President of the United States is African American. The Attorney General, the highest law enforcement officer in the land, is African American. And they haven't even addressed yet once the possibility that there are law enforcement departments out there that still racially profile, that target African Americans or Hispanics or Asians for some different reason. And these kinds of things bother me a lot because they're about to limp out with 2 years left. And you know, they could take a big hit this November, which is another issue. I mean, in terms of the downplay, 6 months ago, everyone thought the Republican Party was dead. Now the Republican Party, thanks very much to health care and the concerns about Obama, they have targeted 16 states where they think they may have a chance to pick up a Senate seat. They're not going to get 16, but they've got a chance at 7 or 8.
Oh.
And that is a strong resurgence of the Republican Party thanks to failures of the Obama administration to maintain the confidence of the American people.
Do you think race relations are any better?
I think you have to acknowledge that they are somewhat better,
yeah.
but he could have done so much more. Where were the fireside chats that Franklin Roosevelt used? He could have garnered the American people. He could have made a major speech once a year even about an issue of race and then held town halls around the country and brought in a blue panel commission and brought people together to deal with the below the level issues. We don't need to wait for a crisis. Trayvon Martin, that generated the kind of crisis atmosphere, but you don't get a lot done when there's a crisis. When you get things done is when you don't have pressure and when people could come together on an issue like this and use the leadership of the president to address these issues. He has not done that, thanks to David Plouffe and Valerie Jarrett, all of them advising him, no, you can't touch that. It's too political hot ball, you know, one of those things. Well, it's a problem for you. And so don't leave it alone.
Problem for you to even tell us what it is.
You know, leave it alone. But I like that, Don. That was good. So, you know,
thank you, Carl.
The reality is
4 Marconis, Carl. I got 4 of them.
Okay. He needed to do a lot more, and he should have. And incidentally, I was pressing in on 2 issues very quickly. About
30 seconds.
9 months ago on your show, I talked about Kelly Ripa and Michael Strahan and how they have really developed great chemistry compared to Nat King Cole with his show.
Yeah.
And a month ago, I heard you raving about it now because it's being acknowledged.
Yes.
A year ago almost, I talked about Jeb Bush being the best next candidate for the Republicans. I was kind of poo-pawed a bit by you at that time. And now Jeb Bush is the favorite insider.
Now what?
Carl,
The great Carl Jeffers here in the program, 11 minutes now till the hour.